5 categories, all real, all avoidable.
Some of them are actually illegal.
You walked out.
They actually looked at me as if to say, "Is this for real?"
What's your spirit animal?
Dan, seriously?
At Career Rocket, we coach candidates on how not to mess up an interview. But here's the thing, employers mess up too, and usually without ever knowing they've done it. Today, Dan and Kat are going through some greatest hits. You might laugh, you might wince. If you're a hiring manager, you might want to take notes.
Let's start with framing, because everything in today's episode sits on top of one idea. An interview is not a one-way assessment, never has been. The candidate is being evaluated, yes, but so are you as the employer, as the manager, as a place someone is considering spending a significant portion of their waking life. The difference is, when a candidate fails an interview, they know about it. When an employer does, they usually don't. Kat, you know a thing or two about interviewing. How aware do employers seem to be of their gaffes?
Not very. Some interviews are brilliant, genuinely welcoming and well run, making the candidate feel like they matter even before they've got the job. But honestly, a surprising number still treat it like they don't want to be there. And that's the thing. The ones who get it right are memorable. The ones who don't, also memorable, just for completely different reasons.
5 categories, all real, all avoidable. Category 1 is admin failures. And we're not talking about previous interviewers overrunning. That can happen. We're talking about the ones that suggest the organization doesn't really have its house in order. Where do we begin?
Well, the interviewer starts with the invitation, of course. Wrong time, wrong link, wrong interviewer name in the calendar invite. And no one notices until you're standing in a reception or staring at a Teams meeting that nobody has joined. As a candidate, you've done everything right. You've prepared, you're on time, and then you spend 10 minutes wondering whether you've hallucinated the whole thing.
It sounds small, but it's the first concrete experience you're having of how that organization operates. And first impressions run both ways.
And then the interview itself. Being sent to the wrong room, being confused with another candidate, being called the wrong name throughout, being interviewed for the wrong role, literally a different job title to the one you applied for.
So, the candidate is doing a very quick calculation. If they can't get this right, what is it going to be like when I'm actually working here? Not ideal. Category 2, questions that are either completely irrelevant to the role or plain inadvisable.
Some of them are actually illegal. I sat in on an interview once, about 20 minutes into an otherwise normal interview, and the recruiting manager decided to ask whether the lady being interviewed was planning on starting a family. Just dropped it in, like it was the most natural thing. I think he thought it was friendly small talk. It's not small talk. It is, in fact, the kind of question that HR departments dread hearing about.
For anyone who needs the reminder, questions about pregnancy, plans for children, relationship status, religion, age beyond what's needed to confirm eligibility for the role, these are areas you simply don't go near. Not because candidates are waiting to catch you out, but because they're irrelevant and they signal that you're making assessments based on something other than their ability to do the job.
And there's a softer version of this too. Questions that aren't 5 categories but are just baffling.
What's your spirit animal?
Or, if you were a kitchen appliance, what would you be and why? I got asked once to describe myself in 3 words without using any words I'd used in my CV. I'm not making these up. People have been asked all of these.
As we covered in Thursday's episode, odd questions can actually serve a purpose, but only if they're testing something real and observable. What's your spirit animal is not doing that. It's just noise that wastes time and makes you look a bit eccentric. Category 3. And this one comes up more than any other when you ask candidates what irritated them. The interviewer who has clearly not read the application.
my personal favourite, and this actually happened to someone I know. They turned up to an interview and were greeted by someone who'd previously made them redundant. Different company, same person. The interviewer clearly hadn't read any of the applications. Both sat through the whole interview awkwardly. Neither mentioned the elephant in the room.
That's extraordinary. What else?
They ask you about experience you've listed in detail. They seem surprised by your qualifications. They ask a question your cover letter answered in its opening paragraph without acknowledging it. And the really fun one, the interviewer who skims your CV during the interview itself, while you're sitting there, in real time.
What does that feel like from the candidate side?
Like your time, which you've given up, potentially taken annual leave for, isn't quite worth 30 minutes of their preparation. I've walked out of 2 interviews in my career.
You walked out?
Not dramatically, just politely thanked them, said I didn't think it was the right fit, and left. Both times it was because the interviewer hadn't read anything I'd sent.
30 minutes of preparation. That's all it takes. Read the CV. Read the application. Know what you're going to ask before they sit down. Category 4, and this one is simultaneously the most entertaining and the most useful as a candidate, because it gives you genuine information about the place you might be joining. The accidental overshare.
Oh yes. The hiring manager who let slip that the last 3 people in the role have left within a year, but frames it as a positive. It's a real opportunity to make the position your own. Or the interviewer who mentions, while describing the team, that things have been a bit tense recently, and then immediately tries to walk it back.
Or the classic, they ask if you have questions, you ask about management style, and the answer is so elaborately careful that it tells you everything.
I once had an interviewer tell me, unprompted, that the previous person in the role had struggled with the pace, then described the pace in some detail, then clock my expression and say, but most people find they adapt. I did not adapt, because I didn't take the job, but I appreciated the warning.
From the employer side, this isn't about being dishonest. Candidates deserve to know what they're walking into, but the framing matters. There's a difference between this role has had high turnover and here's what we're changing, and it's been a bit rocky, but we're sure you'll be fine. One is transparency, the other is serious red flag territory. And finally, category 5. The discourtesies that candidates discuss for years because they're so avoidable and so revealing.
Running late. Fine. It happens. Running 47 minutes late with no message, no apology when they arrive, and no acknowledgement that your time has also got value, less fine.
Rude.
Checking a phone during the interview. Not a glance, I mean actively reading messages. I once watched a fellow interviewer type a reply with the candidate in mid-sentence. They actually looked at me as if to say, "Is this for real?"
Do some interviewers do that stuff to test how you react in the moment?
I'd say so, yes, but in reality, it signals you're not someone worth working for. The test works both ways.
What about the dreaded yawn? There's no defense against it. It's involuntary. It can happen to anyone. But what message does it send out?
No defense? Dan, seriously? Get some sleep, eat a light meal, coffee even. And what message? The wrong one. About you.
Sorry, you heard it here. Yawning is not acceptable.
Another that stings quietly. No follow-up. The interview goes well, there's talk of next steps, and then nothing. No email, no rejection, no acknowledgement that you exist. We covered ghosting on Monday, but ghosting is not just at application stage. Interviewees can get it too, but now it's amplified because they took the trouble to give up their day for your interview.
Kat, if you could wave a wand and change one thing about how interviews are run, what would it be?
Honestly, it's exactly that last point. Just tell people. Whatever the outcome is, tell them promptly, tell them clearly, and if they've made it to interview, tell them something specific enough to be useful.
And I think that's the through line in all 5 categories. The candidates you interview will talk about the experience. They'll tell their networks, their peers, sometimes the internet. The question is what they'll say. Thank you. It's been stimulating. And I didn't yawn once.
I'd have walked out if you had.
If you're someone who recruits people, we're launching Recruit Rocket in just a few weeks. It's a platform aimed purely at helping small business owners get it right and find their next ideal hire. Recruitment is just about treating all candidates as though they matter. Recruit Rocket will help with that.